So the topic is Basics of Statistics, Part 1. So it has been divided into two parts. Uh, the part 1 is now, and the part 2 will be followed tomorrow. So in the basic of statistics, the very first thing which comes is data. So we start with the types of data. So there are broadly four types of data. The very first is a nominal data type. So what is the nominal data type? It's basically a quantitative notion for a character data, and its magnitude does not represent the quantum of the notion. What do we mean by that? We mean that, let's say, we write gender as written here, the R code, and code it as 0 or 1, which is male or female. But the idea of 0 and 1 has no meaning by itself. We can write it 1, 2, we can write it -1, 1, or anything. So by itself, even male, female, it does not have any meaning in itself. It can be represented by numeric value, it can be represented by some other. So another example which you may be able to relate is the numbers of jersey of cricketers. So you have seen in cricket, in soccer, that these players have a jersey number 1, 10, 7. So these jersey numbers, they do not represent anything. They do not represent their rank. They do not represent their performance. It's just a serial number which is given to them. So that is what we mean by nominal data. So a nominal data in R can be represented as a factor. So a factor is nothing, it's just a variable which stores and categorizes a character values as levels. So as you must have been familiar with the factor by doing the spoken tutorials. So what we do here, that we have some character values and we categorize them depending upon some levels which we assign. So levels, again, they represent unique values out of the characters value which constitute to the factor. So in R, we can create a factor using the factor function. Then in the X parameter, we put the data which we want to create a factor of. Then we decide the levels. So what are the levels? Levels are nothing but just the unique values. You can see these are all but the unique values. Then we label them, that male is labeled as male, female as female, man is also male, woman is also female, so on and so forth. So this is how we create a factor. So I'll show you by running it in R. So in R Markdown, as you know, just like R console, we can run code in R Markdown also. So you see the same results are there, that you have given a data, a random data, then you convert it into certain levels by labeling them. This is your output. This is a nominal data. Now coming to the next type of data, which is the ordinal data. So the ordinal data, it's the variables quantum which has a specific order. However, the difference between two successive order values may not be the same. So what do we mean by that? So it is similar to the nominal data. For example, if we take customer satisfaction, whenever you fill a feedback form, you are asked to give your satisfaction rate as good, okay, poor, excellent. So if we code them as 1, 2, and 3, then these 1, 2, and 3 does not uh, have the same difference, even though we assume that the difference between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 are the same, but it is not actually. It is just for the sake of ordering them. So this good, okay, and poor are ordered in this fashion, that good is 1, okay is second, and poor is third. Whereas the difference between good and okay may not be the same as okay and poor. So this is what ordinal data represent. In R, it is represented by a factor. Again, we have some character values. We create levels, which are nothing but just the unique values, and then we create the labels. So I show it by running the code. If I run the code, You get it? All the character values and their levels. So here you can see there is an order, whereas above there was no order. So here, but you cannot differentiate between the order of excellent and very and good. You cannot say that the difference between the subsequent values is the same. Now coming to discrete data. So in discrete data, the variable takes either finite or countable many values. So, and its magnitude is the actual quantum of the variable. So what do we mean by that? Is that it can take a finite number of value or countable many values, not just one, but many values. And its magnitude actually represents that particular value. Whereas here, 1, 2, and 3 do not represent good, okay, and poor. They are just for maintaining the order. Whereas 1, 2, 3, 4 are the actual values. Now the discrete data in R is represented as a vector. So we can simply create a vector. Let's say print 1 to 10. And this is how you create a discrete data. Now in continuous data, the possible values of the variable could be any real number. So for example, we take the height of a person. So the height of a person depends upon how precisely you measure it, or the weight of a box. So it depends upon the instrument. It can be 1.5 meter or 1.527 meters, depending upon how precise your measurement is. So similarly, a continuous data are also represented using a vector in R, whereas you can manipulate the significant digits by using the options function in R. So I'll run the code. You see, this is a vector of 1 to 10 multiplied by pi. Given that the significant digits are 5, there are 5 significant digits. I run it, and you see. So if I change the number from 5 to 9 and run it again, you'll see a difference. So this is how we represent continuous data in R in the form of a vector. Now going to the next section, which is measures of the central tendency. So typically it is observed in many data that data is centered around a particular point. So that is why we measure that central tendency, because it is basically centered around a particular point, for which we have various calculation methods. One of them is arithmetic mean, which is a measure of the central tendency of a given data variable, which is nothing but if we have a data set D containing n observations, let's say from x1, x2 to xn, then the arithmetic mean is simply the summation of I1 to n xi upon n. So this can be easily calculated in R using the mean function. So if I run the code, first I'm creating a vector containing values 1 to 10, and then I'm taking its mean. The mean is 5.5. So before moving forward, just one thing I want to clarify, that this particular live session is regarding the implementation, is more focused on the implementation of R, implementation of basic statistics in R, rather than the mathematics behind it. We definitely cover the mathematics, but it will be more focused toward the application part, towards applying how we apply them in R. Coming to the second part, mode. So a mode is for any quantitative and qualitative data. So it is for both nominal, ordinal, or discrete and continuous data variable. It is just defined as the most occurring observation. So in R, there is no built-in function for mode, but we can calculate it with the help of table and max and which functions. So what is this table, max, and which function? So a table function with its by its name, what it does is it gives us the frequency of a particular of the unique values in a data set. For example, we can see there are A, B, C, D, A, E. So our table will give us its frequency of each particular unique value. So so I'll run it. Then if I only run the table, I'll get the frequency. So A is coming 4 times, B 3 times, C1, D2, and E2. Now the which function basically give us the index which basically satisfies this particular condition. So what is this condition? That the index where the number is the maximum number. We have saved our table in the count, so we need to find that particular index of the table which is the maximum, for which we have used this function. If I run it, it will give me A with the highest frequency. Now moving ahead with median. So median is defined as the middle observation present in a dataset. So let's say if your observations are odd numbered, if there are odd number of observations, then the middle observation is the median when they are arranged from lowest to highest. So the first thing is you need to sort them in ascending order. Then if they are odd numbers, then you pick the middle one, and that is the median. Whereas if they contain even number of observations, then the average of the middle two is your median. It can be easily calculated using the median function of R. Now going to the code again. So here I have used set seed 1. So why I have used set seed 1? So for this example, I'm creating some random values using the runif function or runif, which creates random uniform variable. So I need 20 such values ranging from 1 to 20. I'm rounding them because they are not integers. If I run it, I'll get real values. So in order to get integer values, I need to round them off. So now I get integer values. So I'll save it, sort the data, and then find the median. So as there are 20 values, so the median is basically the average of the middle two values. Now going to the next part, measures of dispersion. So before going to measures of dispersion, so the very basic aspects of finding the dispersion is min, max, and range. So min and max by their name signifies that they represent the minimum and maximum of a dataset. And range is nothing but the difference between the minimum and maximum. So in R, a range of a dataset can be calculated with the help of built-in functions min and max. So in R, you get min function to find the minimum observation and max function to find the maximum observation. Again, I'm creating some random values. then what I'm doing in one step, I'm finding the maximum of the data. Oh, sorry. Yes, which is 20. Finding the minimum of the data, which is 2. And then I'm printing the range. Okay. Which is 80. So this is how you calculate the range. Now coming to variance. So the variance is a measure of deviation from mean of a dataset. So what is this deviation? So the deviation is the distance and observation, distance of an observation from the mean. So what we calculate in a variance is the average of square of all such deviations. So why do we need to square them? Because otherwise variance could be 0. All the values may be equally dispersed on both the sides of the mean, and the final variance will come as to be 0, which will look like as if there is no dispersion at all. So that's why we square them. So if given a dataset D containing n observations from x1 to xn with mean x bar, then the variance is defined as follows, which is nothing but summation of I1 to n xi minus x bar square divided by n. So in R, there is a built-in function var, which calculates the variance of a dataset. Now going to the calculation part, again I will create random values, and simply by using the var function, I'll calculate the variance. Now going to the next portion, standard deviation. So a standard deviation is defined as the square root of variance. Now one may ask, if there is a variance, why there is a need of standard deviation? Why there is a need to take a square root? Because when we calculate the variance, it is not expressed in the same units as that of the mean. To get the value of dispersion as that of the mean is to take a square root, which is nothing but standard deviation. So why do we want it to be in the same units as that of the mean? Because let's say if you have a measure of length of some height of some people, and they are varied from 1 meter to 2 meter. If you find the variance, you will get the value in meter square, not in meter. So it is better to relate the dispersion in the same units as in terms of meter square, because meter square is the unit of area, not of length. So it is easier to basically measure the dispersion and to have a feel of the dispersion in the same units as that in some other units. So that's why we take the standard deviation. It can be easily calculated using the SD function in R. So again, I'll show you. First we create a data, and then we simply calculate the standard deviation. Now going to the next part, empirical quantile. So empirical quantiles are the order statistics of a given dataset. Here, the qth empirical quantile of a dataset is the value that q fractions of the data is below it and 1 minus q fractions is above it. So what do we mean by it? We mean that, let's say you have a data and you want the 0.5 quantile of that data. So what it is actually referring, it is referring to that value which divides it in half. So that half of the data is below that value and half of the data is above that value, which means Q fraction of the data. Q means 0.5 is below it, and 1 minus Q, which is again 0.5, is above it. So quantiles are written as fractions, also as percentages. So you can refer to as 0.5 quantile or 50% quantile. 0.5 quantile, as it divides the complete data into two parts, it is known as median. So in R, we can easily use the quantile function to calculate the quantile of a dataset. Now coming to the code, I create a random data. I sort it. So sorting is necessary. Then I find the quantile. So if you see that, you see the total number of values are 20. So 25% quantile is 7.5. That means there must be 5 values below 7.5, which is true. Then the 50% quantile is 12.5. So there must be 10 values. It must divide it in 10 parts. It must divide it in two parts containing 10 values each, which must be below 12.5. So see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So this is correctly calculating all the quantiles. So that's about empirical quantile. Now coming to interquartile range or IQR. So as the name is suggesting, it is regarding some range. As we know, that range is nothing but the difference between maximum and minimum values in an observation. So this has also to do with some difference between the maximum and minimum value. So what it is, the Q quantiles are values that partition a finite dataset in Q subsets. So a Q quantile can be, let's say, 2 quantile or 3 quantile or 4 quantile. So a 2 quantile will divide it into 2 subsets, 3 quantile and 3 subsets, 4 quantile and 4 subsets. So now when the value of Q is 4, then it is known as a quartile. A quartile divides the complete data into 4 parts, 4 equal parts. Then the interquartile range of the data set is nothing but the difference between the upper and lower quartile. So what is this upper and lower quartile? Q3 and Q1. So IQR is a measure of variability. It also is used to measure the variability, and IQR can be easily calculated using the IQR function of R. Now coming back to the question of what is this upper and lower quartiles. So I again create a random data, sort it, and I'll find the IQR. So as you can see, the IQR is 8.5. So what is this 8.5 and where it came from? So if you see here, as the data is same, I'm using the same data throughout. So it is nothing but the difference between this 75% quartile and 25% quartile. This interquartile range is nothing but 16 minus 7.5, which is just 75% quartile minus 25% quartile. It gives us the range of the quartiles. So that's about the measure of variability. Now coming to the measures of shape. So whenever we have a data, we visualize it and we get a shape. So the shape can be symmetric, asymmetric. Now in order to measure the symmetry of the particular shape, we have a method. That method is known as skewness. So if we have a data set containing n observations, let's say x1 to xn, then the skewness is calculated as follows. You can see the formula. So here, if you remember this particular formula, the denominator is nothing but variance. You see, it is nothing but variance. So that shows the importance of variance, that its applications throughout statistics. So a skewness can be positive, which means it can be skewed right, or there can be no skewness at all, which means it can be perfectly symmetrical, or there can be negative skewness, which means it is skewed left, and there is no unit associated with it. It is a unit-free measure. So in R, skewness can be calculated using the skewness function present in the moments package. Now I will go to the code section. I will load the library moments to get the skewness function. And here I'm loading a library tidyverse. So tidyverse contains all the libraries ggplot, dplyr, migrator, tibble, purrr, all are contained inside tidyverse. Now this time I've used suppress messages function. So if I run this tidyverse without suppressing the messages, it will give me messages that ggplot has been loaded, dplyr has been loaded, which is not necessary. So that's why I've used this suppress message command to suppress all those messages. Now for this particular operation, I'm taking a predefined data set, which is CO2 data set. If I run it in the console, or better if I run the summary, this is a summary of CO2. We can see there are plants QN1, QN2, QN3, QC1, QC3, QC2 of type Quebec or Mississippi, and treatment non-chilled and chilled. So what it is calculating, it is just calculating that the carbon dioxide uptake in green plants. So whenever you want to find anything regarding the preloaded data sets in R, let's say CO2, let's say empty cars, you just press a question mark and write empty cars. It will give you a description of what that data contains. So coming back to CO2, it contains the carbon dioxide uptake in grass plants. Now, what I have done, as you might have been familiar with dplyr, you know the filter function. Here I've also used the pipe operator. So what I'm doing, I'm filtering for easier calculations. I'm filtering the plant of type QN1 and type Quebec and treatment non-chilled. So out of this whole data set, I'm taking a small bunch for just demonstration purpose. So this is the data I will work upon, only 7 rows. Then what I will do, this is the result. So if you see that that calculating skewness is of the obtained probability distribution. So using the R predefined function, we can directly calculate it. Let's say skewness result. So we are getting this result. So as we are not talking about the probability distributions, we can remove the statement. So we can directly calculated using skewness, or instead of using this skewness function, in order to check whether our formula is correct or not, we can do it manually also. So what I have done, I've taken the x as result minus mean of result, and n as the length of result. So what this length gives us? Length gives us the number of observations in a vector. So as we know that the number of rows were 7, so therefore the n is 7. Now in this command, what I've done, I've simply applied this particular formula. So as you can see here, the values are same. There is no change. Now coming to kurtosis. So this basically means negative, and a negative value means that it is skewed left. So this data is skewed left with this particular magnitude. Now coming to the next part, which is kurtosis. So till now we have read about the asymmetry. Now we'll measure the peakedness or flatness of a given data set. So it can also be measured, and its measure is known as kurtosis. So higher the value of kurtosis, higher the value of peakedness. So if given a data set containing n observations, x1 to xn, then the kurtosis is calculated as follows. Again, you will observe that the variance has been used here also. So in R, kurtosis can be calculated using the kurtosis function present in moments package, as shown previously. So again, going to the code, I will load the moments package. So this time I'm loading tidyverse, and then again I'm doing the same process, extracting a portion of the CO2 dataset. Yes, so now I've done the same thing, just like skewness. The only changes which I have made in the formula. In this section, I have made the changes. Everything else is same as skewness. So you can see that I'm getting the same result with the predefined function, also by calculating everything manually, which means that our formula is correct and working fine. So in R, this is just an example of the usability of R. For example, if you try to code it in Java or in C, C++, then you have to write code like this. It can be even more complex for more complicated statistical operations. So in R, you don't have to do this. You only need to know which function is required, and you can simply use that predefined function to get the results. So that is why R is more popular than other programming languages, because you have predefined functions to find the results which you want. So we can see the results are same. Now moving ahead with the data distribution. So data distribution, what we mean by data distribution is the graphical representation of the spread or distribution of a data. So we graphically represent the spread, and the type of distribution vary with the type of data involved. So now coming to the first one, which is the frequency distribution of discrete data. So it refers to the distribution of data in a data set containing only finite and countable values, which is nothing but discrete data. It is graphically represented using a bar plot. Why bar plot? Because it displays the frequencies associated with each unique data value. So below is an example of such distribution, which is created using R. Now for this example, I have used ggplot2 package. Again, I am simply creating a dummy data. And now I'm loading the ggplot2 package. In the ggplot2 package, the very first argument must be a data frame. So as my argument, as the data is a vector, I need to convert it into a data frame. Then in aesthetics, I give only one value, which is the data. So if I convert a vector into a data frame, then the column name becomes the name of that particular vector. I show it to you. So let's say I run data. It constitutes these values. Now if I convert it into a data frame, you can see that the column name is the name of the vector which we have assigned it to. So that's why in the aesthetics I've used this name. Now for bar plot I'm using GOM bar, and for a simpler theme I'm using theme BW. Labs is for labels. I'm putting the label of x-axis as value, y-axis as frequency. And you can see this is the result. This is the frequency of each and every value, because in discrete data, the values may repeat, so we get a frequency. So bar plot is only possible in discrete data. Now coming to the continuous data distribution. So in continuous data distribution, we have the distribution associated with infinite set of values within a certain range. So it is graphically represented in the form of a histogram. Now, why not a bar plot? Why not we are using bar plot? Because in a continuous data, values does not repeat. So that's why we require a histogram. And what a histogram does, it does nothing, just divides the data into subintervals. And for each subinterval, it plots the number of observations. So it is basically doing the same thing as bar plot, but first by dividing it into subintervals, and then plotting the number of observations in each subinterval. So below is an example of such distribution. So the size of the subinterval is known as bin. So we can take control of that bin width. For this example, I am taking a data set, again a preloaded data set, faithful. So just like CO2, we can write a question mark, faithful, and know what it is about. So it is about the waiting time between eruptions and the duration of eruption for the Old Faithful geyser in Yellowstone National Park. So for our operation, for creating a histogram, first we will see how the data looks like. So as you can see, the data is continuous. We are taking x equals waiting. So we'll first put the faithful data frame as the first argument. The aesthetics equals waiting. We'll this time take GOM histogram, which will create a histogram. Bin width as 2, color as white. This color is to color the boundary. If I don't keep any color, then it will be black, completely black. So I've just added the color to have a different differentiation of each bar of the histogram. Then again the theme is BW for better visualization, and labels are added for X and for Y. You can see the same result here. This time on the x-axis, instead of writing value, we have written subintervals. And on the y-axis, instead of writing frequency, we have written the number of observations. So this is what a histogram does. Divides the data into subintervals and plot the number of observations. So histogram is only possible in continuous data, not in discrete data. Now coming to a type of discrete data distribution, which is a binomial distribution. So it describes the output or outcome of n independent trials in an experiment. So if in an experiment there are n independent trials, given that each trial has two mutually exclusive outcomes, which means either success or failure, then mathematically the binomial distribution is used to obtain the probability of observing x successes in n trials, where p denotes the probability of success on a single trial. So you can see it is assumed that p is fixed for all trials, and the formula of binomial probability mass function is given as follows. So we won't go into the detail of this formula, as the purpose of this live session is to show the implementation in R. So it can be easily implemented using the d binom function of R. So let's go to the code. So I said the number of trials is 100. Vector containing sequence representing the number of successes as 1 from 1 to 100, and probability of success on a given trial as 0.35. Now I will plot using the plot function, giving x or 1 to 100 sequence as the x axis values, and for y axis value I will calculate this function. It can be easily calculated using d binom. The type will be h, horizontal, which h means horizontal. Main is the title of the plot. We don't need any y or x label. So now let's plot it. So this is the plot. Let's say if I change the value of p 3.5, let's say 65, 0.65. So we see a shift. So in the same way, you can play around with different values and get a different distribution. Now coming to the normal distribution. As the binomial distribution is a type of discrete data distribution, normal distribution is a type of continuous data distribution. So it is a type of continuous probability distribution for a real valued random variable. So again, we are not covering random variable and probability distribution here. So in which the data tends to be around a central value, which without any bias towards left and right. So during the workshop, someone also asked that how to plot a bell-shaped curve. So in order to plot a bell-shaped curve, what you do, you basically plot a normal distribution, as you can see here. So it is often called a bell curve because of its bell shape. And also for a normal distribution, the mean, mode, and median are all same, and there is symmetry about the center. So if given mean x bar and standard deviation sigma, then the probability function associated with normal distribution is as follows. So a normal distribution can be generated in R using d-norm function. So it is very straightforward. Just like a binomial distribution, we can use the d-norm function to create a normal distribution. I'll show it to you. Going to the code. I'm creating a sequence from 1 to 100, setting mu as 50, sigma as 12, and again using the same plot function by only changing some values, like for main, and type this time L to show the curve only. If I change it to H, then I will get a different curve. See, I'm getting a different curve because now it is drawn horizontally. If I again type L, which represents line, then there we will only see a line. Finally, the last section, which is correlation. So whenever we have two variables, two data columns, we can say if a data set contains two columns, we call each column as a variable, then it is sometimes important to know whether there is any relationship between those two variables. So one way is to calculate the correlation between the two variables. So its value ranges from -1 to 1, where a negative value indicates that for every positive increase in one variable, there is a negative decrease of a fixed proportion in the other, and vice versa. So negative means it's pretty obvious that the relationship is negative. If one increases, the other decreases. If positive, the one increases, the other also increases. Zero indicates that there is no relationship present among the variable. So with the increase of one variable, there won't be any effect on the other variable and vice versa. So if given n observations of variable x and y, with x bar and y bar representing the mean of values, then the correlation is as follows. This is the formula of correlation. Now correlation in R can be easily calculated using the core function. So R has a predefined function COR, which can find the correlation, though we can still code this formula and get the same result. So I'll get to the code. So for this one, I've used the IRIS dataset. So let's check what the IRIS dataset is about. So IRIS dataset is the dataset of measurements in centimeters of the variables sepal length and width and petal length and petal width of 50 flowers of each 3 species of iris. So it contains a measurement regarding related to flowers of 3 species of iris. So what I have taken here, there are 4 columns associated with the sepal length and width and petal length and width. So what I'm trying to find a correlation between the sepal length and sepal width. So first I will use the core function, a predefined function of R, to find the correlation. Then I have done the manual calculation. In the manual calculation, if you see carefully, it is nothing but just I have used the same formula to calculate it manually to see whether this formula is correct or not, whether it is matching with my results from the predefined function. So just to interrupt, there is one thing which I want you to know, that in R, being an open source language, it shows the code which is there in a function. Like in core function, just by writing core, you can see the code which it contains, the complete code. So when I manually calculate something, what I'm doing is I'm basically verifying whether my calculation is the same as the code written in the predefined function. So we can see the results are same, which means the formula is correct. We are getting the correct result. And this is about correlation. So finally, there are 3 practice problems. And for these practice problems, it is advised to use the Penguins dataset from Palmer Penguins package. So you must have been familiar with the Palmer Penguins package because this package has been used in the questions of practice problems of spoken tutorial. Now you have to use the same dataset Penguins from the package to solve the following 3 practice problems. So these practice problems are quite straightforward. You need to find mean, standard deviation, interquartile range, correlation. You can find it using the formula by coding the solution, or you can find it using the function, whichever you feel better. And this document shall be shared with you after this day's workshop gets over. So this will be a homework, a type of homework. So that's about the basics of statistics part 1. So again, uh, the mathematics behind the statistics can be more complex, but our focus was on the implementation of these topics in R, so that one who is a beginner in R can get a feel and can get started in doing these operations, performing this operation in R. So that's all. So any queries?
Will this file be shared with us?
Yes, definitely. This will be shared with you.
That will be.
Go through it thoroughly. Go through the code thoroughly. Try to do the calculations on your own, and do the practice problems also.
So in R, there are inbuilt functions which are very easy to use.
So the purpose of writing a code and checking its value with the function, one purpose was to show how easy it is to use R. That you don't have to code all the calculations. You can simply use functions in R to do
you don't need to know the formula. You don't need to know the calculation, how it is being calculated back end. So you just should know the concept, and rest of the things will be taken care by the function.
So this help in getting started with R. So for example, a person only have to know what a correlation finds. He or she may not have to know what is the actual math behind it. And only using the core function can find that yes, these two variables are correlated positively or negatively. So that's about it. That is why R is so easy to use, and it makes it easier even for the beginners to learn. That's it. I think we can move ahead.